Welcome to the show, another episode. Today we've got another legend from around the area, Mr. Joel West. Thanks for coming on the show, Joel.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Thanks for coming, man.
Pleasure, buddy.
Really appreciate it. So I ask everyone this first question.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up and how did you get into electronic music? Where did it all begin?
I grew up here in British Columbia, and it's just a province in Canada if you're watching from elsewhere on the west coast. I'm from northern BC. That's where I grew up as a small child, and music was right from the beginning. I have a distinct memory of being about 2.5, 3 years old and getting up before my parents in the morning in my Spider-Man underwear and throwing on music. I forget which tape it was. It might have been like Haggood Hardy or something. The ghost has arrived.
That's so good.
That's never happened, is it?
No.
Keep it. Mistakes are
just
golden.
carry on. It's all good.
I mean, yeah, that's never happened, but that freaked me out.
I think it was the Spider-Man underpants.
I think that was it.
Yeah, you're a
the spirits
superhero.
The
out.
ghost was like, hello.
You're a superhero, yeah. You can come.
And just getting up and throwing on throwing on some music and like jumping up on the couch and just jumping up and down and like moving around as kids are wont to do. And like from there, it's just never stopped. We moved from there to the Cuete area, which is near Nelson also in British Columbia. And that area is known as a very kind of has a strong counterculture and arts community and kind of hippie background. There were a lot of draft dodgers there from the U.S. in the 60s and 70s, and so it was them and their kids. And with that, there was a really strong jam band and musical culture. Mm-hmm. So I grew up just going out and dancing at stuff that was kid friendly to very funky music. So it was very, very easy to be brought along and involved in this musical culture from a very, very young age.
Were your parents very into music themselves? Did they kind of always have it in the house?
Yeah, what were they listening to?
Yeah, always, especially, and for me it was big, was car tapes, like, because we drove a lot because we lived in the country. Yeah. So to get anywhere you had to drive for a fairly long time, and the major center was about an hour away. Yeah. So, in the car was like Bob Marley and Tracy Chapman and Murray McLaughlin and Dire Straits. And I'm trying to think of one that I'm forgetting right now, but it's just an incredible kind of mixture. Paul Simon, but just big mixture of music. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, whatever I was interjecting into the musical conversation as I grew up. Mm-hmm. And that eventually as a teenager turned into like hip hop. And I had a cousin from the States who was very much into hip hop, and it was part of her culture. So she would visit in the summer and bring me mixtapes and stuff she was listening to. And that turned me on to that whole culture. And, in a way that I wouldn't have had access to if I didn't have a cousin from the States, from the city in the States, bringing that type of music, at that age. So I got into that really early, and that was what I listened to mostly through high school. And then around that time, there was a lot of jazz influence, like Tribe Called Quest, Souls of Mischief, stuff like that. So that got me to jazz, and then jazz I landed in Montreal. We were talking about this before we were rolling, and that was right when Saint Germain's Tourist came out, which was a heavily jazz influenced electronic album with a lot of house element to it. And that got me into electronic music in a bigger way than I had been before. I was listening to Prodigy and I was listening to stuff like that. It was kind of an extension of almost like metal or punk for me, and that kind of like raging big energy type of music as a teenager. But this really got me rooted in, there's this whole culture of electronic music. And then living in Montreal and starting to go out and experience what clubbing is like and being out all night dancing in a big room with 1,000 people. I mean, that was a real eye-opener for me.
What age were you when you first landed in Montreal?
Like 19, 20, 21.
Yeah, so perfect.
Yeah,
just
perfect.
Going out, right?
Perfect age to stay up all night and get up and write a paper the next day.
Yeah, right.
I always find that Montreal always have like the best like lineups. Like they've had Boiler Room there and everything like that. Is it literally because the city is that cultural for music?
Yes.
And that way inclined that obviously it draws everyone there for that, for the techno.
Again, we kind of were just briefly chatting on it, weren't we? Like, it's Montreal, from what I understand, has got a very good party scene.
We have to understand that Montreal is the epicenter of a whole nation in a sense, because Quebec in itself is like a country, and Montreal is, although Quebec City is the capital, Montreal is the cultural and business capital of that small nation, and so it has the best of everything, and they're very fashion forward, they're very culture forward, they're very, it's a very, I would liken it very much to Europe in that way.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. My daughter actually went there on a school trip. Yeah, and because she does French immersion, right. So nice. She went over there on a school trip, and she's been to Europe. Obviously, we're from England, so she's come over there a couple of times. She has gone over to France, and she said, it's a very European feel. Yeah,
I think it's the buildings as well, innit? The buildings are quite similar.
Everything.
Everything on the East Coast is built out of brick, and
the architecture and just the culture and just the way of life,
and some of that vibe. Right? Some of that brick actually came over as ballast from Europe in ships.
Is that right?
Some of the really old stuff.
Yeah.
So it's, there is a direct connection not only with the language and all of that, but also with the very foundations of the buildings.
That's cool, man. So, was your first gig in Montreal?
No, my first gig. So after Montreal, I moved. I was going to an acting school, the National Theatre School of Canada, which is like Canada's Juilliard, or Royal Shakespeare Academy, or whatever it is in London.
What age did you start there?
21. So I did a year at McGill and realized that I really needed to go to an acting school. So I tried out for the National Theatre School and got in, and they only took 14 people a year, and I was one of those 14 people.
Wow, that's amazing.
Did my 3 years there. So I did 4 years in Montreal, and then I moved to Sudbury, Ontario, because I had a girlfriend at the time who was in university there finishing up. So I was like, okay, I'll move there while you finish up. That's where I bought my first turntables, which we were talking about was a pair of Geminis, which you had to baby very much. So I was playing vinyl.
Belt drives?
Oh no, they were direct drive, but they were like the economy mod. They were sensitive. Yeah, which in a way is a great way to learn.
It's the best way to learn,
because you have to really build your muscle memory and build your you have to be careful.
Again, you have to be gentle.
Yeah.
Right.
So I got my first turntables there and spent a while practicing, and then after that moved to Guelph, Ontario, because again that ex-girlfriend got a placement there for her job or her schooling, and that's where I had my first gig out at a place called the Cornerstone, which was a restaurant that did DJ nights, and I train wrecked every mix, and I had the most fun. I was like, I am doing this again as often as I can. Until I get good at it.
Yeah.
So,
how were the record store? I didn't mean to cut you off, but what was it like buying vinyl back then?
Yeah, like your first record.
It was amazing because there was in Guelph, actually, there was an incredible record store, which I can remember. I can see the logo in my head. It was a lion's head, and it was run by a guy named Alan. And my friend Dino worked there, who became a mentor to me. He was a really good house head. If you're watching this, Dino, thank you. Alan, too.
Big shout out to Dino.
Big shout out to Dino.
Yeah, for helping me along my musical journey. But they had great records, and because Dino was there, he would do some of the house buying, I believe, if I'm not misremembering.
He was kind of picking what was coming in.
They had great stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They had funky house. They had tribal house, which I was really into at the time. Bought some of my first Johnny Fiasco records there. Royal Drums, I remember they were big. So it was a very lucky, and it was about 2 blocks from my house.
Oh, mate.
So it was dangerous.
Yeah.
It's like my paychecks were going right there.
Expensive.
A paycheck.
Did they keep a little bag behind for you?
You know what? They actually did. And not
that's
only,
when you know you're a local in a record store, when you've got a little bag that they're like, oh, buddy.
And sorry, Alan and Dino, because I know it probably wasn't a good thing, but Dino used to every once in a while, because I'd keep a little bin of my wants and then come and pick them up on payday. And every once in a while, I'd say, I'm going to take those 7, but not those 3. And then he would slip like an extra one underneath. And just so sorry, guys, I'm giving away your secrets.
Yeah.
So that was, but feeling as a newcomer into the scene, feeling that sort of love and support from more senior DJs within the scene. is a really important part of your growth and feeling like you want to be part of this thing, whatever this is, this electronic music thing. So again, thanks for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Having those mentors and those people who are kind to you as you find your way in, I think is really important. So if you get a chance to do that, please do that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it can be a bit of a cliquey scene sometimes.
It can be.
Right? So it's nice when you find people that actually embrace newcomers and mentor, like you said.
Yeah.
Right.
From there, I moved to Toronto and started playing out a lot more. Became a resident at the Drake Hotel, bi-weekly Saturday night resident. Played a resident at NASA Dance Pub, played the Cool House, played different little venues and clubs around Queen and John. To better and less success, but kind of paying my dues.
Yeah,
it's a learning curve, isn't it? Sorry, cut you off.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, it's a learning curve, obviously.
Yeah.
I was going to say, did you move out to Toronto to play music? Was that part of your move? Or?
I moved to Toronto to pursue acting.
Okay,
but music very quickly became a huge passion, a driving passion, and I think probably I didn't know it at the time, but superseded acting for me.
I was actually going to ask, and again, I didn't mean to cut you off at all, but when you were talking about acting earlier, I was going to say, when was the point where you decided that maybe music's what I want to do and not acting? So that's almost tying into where we're at right now.
You know what? I actually remember making a declaration in theater school. Every 3 months there was we had a kind of a coffee house open, almost like an open mic night for our student body, where we'd present work that we were working on, and we could goof off, we could blow off some steam, because it was a very intense program. And I remember on one of those nights, I played one of the songs that I'd like mashed together in Cakewalk or something. I don't even remember what I was using, some program at the time. And I put it on and I was like, I'm going to do this. I am going to pursue a career in electronic music. It was a terrible song. Again, like, you don't know you're bad at that point. You're just like, I'm into this. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And so I made that commitment. And I mean, that's a long time ago now.
And that's actually not just committed to DJing. That's now committing to producing and making music too.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Going that step beyond just playing other people's music.
Committing to... I don't think there's anything wrong with just playing just playing other people's music.
No.
But I think if you're really passionate about it and you're a curious person at all, you're going to want to produce music. And I think there is something special. They inform each other so much. The way I produce now informs my DJing in a way that I didn't have before, and the way I DJ informs how I produce in a way that I couldn't have predicted. So it's
that's interesting.
They're just, people say they're separate skills, and they do have different,
but they're married
together.
Sets,
but they're so married together.
Do you
know what I found was that I started DJing, and then I thought, I need to start producing.
Yeah.
But when you're DJing and then you're mixing tracks, you know a certain thing. But then when you start making tracks, you're like, I can make this work together so much more easier this way.
Right.
And when certain things are coming a lot more, just because you have been through that producing sort of phase.
Absolutely.
Not phase, sorry, that you go through the production thing, and when you DJ, I think it benefits you a bit more. Not too much, but I think it does help with your mixing and track selections as well.
Absolutely.
I think as well nowadays, and again, I'm not a producer at all, but I think nowadays to really make it and break it, you have to be both.
I think so.
And to
really
really hit it, because there's so many, it's so accessible to so many people now.
Yeah.
It was, there was stuff around back then, but equipment was way more expensive.
Absolutely.
There's cheaper versions of things you can get now. Software wasn't as available. There was limited software, basic versions of Cubase, whatever it might have been at the very beginning, right? And I just think it's more people watch it on YouTube, more people say and the more people have realized that if I really want to stand out from the crowd, I can't just play other people's music. I got to produce.
This brings up a couple interesting things. The barrier for entry has gotten so much lower for both DJing and producing. DJing especially, I think now has become very easy to kind of pick up and get to a certain level of aptitude with very quickly. That's why you see people playing out after picking up DJing 6 months ago. But it really takes 10 years to make a DJ. because you have to have all those failures and those experiences and those mistakes and different crowds and different nights and different cities, and absorb all that into your skin to know how to give it back. And you can't do that without time. And then I would say with producing, while the equipment can be fairly accessible and all of that, it takes the time to really learn how to do it well. And it really takes time and effort. And a lot of people try and skip that and hire a ghost producer. I'm very much against that. If you use a ghost producer, I hate you.
I think that's pretty much most people.
If you are a ghost producer, I don't hate you. If you are hustling and you're making music for someone and someone wants to buy your music and put their name on it, I don't have anything against you. But if you're someone who's built a career on putting on other people's music, I don't hate you. I'm just wondering, like, what
are you really gaining, I guess?
What are you gaining and what are you losing? Now, I've said that, and I'm going to get a lot of flack because there are a lot of people out there, very, very big people especially, who use productions that are made by other people and put their stamp on it.
I know a few people.
A lot of people. Yeah. So I'm probably going to get, doors slammed on me for saying that.
We're all entitled to our opinions.
But that is my opinion. I guess I'll reframe it, and maybe we can cut and edit it, or maybe not. I think if you really love music and you're an artistic person and you really love DJing and you really love the culture, why wouldn't you learn to make music? Why wouldn't you want to do it yourself? Why wouldn't you put the time in? Why wouldn't you be willing to suffer putting out shit music for a few years until you get good at making music? Which is what I've been doing in the last 2 years or so. I go back and listen to what I've made. I put out 40 or 50 records last year, which is a lot. I've kind of looked back on it and surprised myself. And I go back to some of even the early ones in the last year and a half, and I'm like, ooh, compared to where I am now, I
listened to some of my tracks in 2014. I'm like, what the fuck is
right?
That?
But that's good.
Yeah,
that means you're improving.
It's basically just a fucking kick and a hat, a clap, and that's pretty much
that's
some riff.
That's Richie Houghton.
Yeah,
and I totally hear you with the time it takes, because like I said, I don't know anything about it, but I've got a couple of toys, and I know even just trying to figure out one of them.
Yeah, it takes time
to really know what's going on.
And that can frustrate a lot of people, and they're not willing to. Seth Godin, Seth Godin has a really good book called The Dip. It talks about at first things are easy, and then you get to
realize
this point,
like, oh fuck,
you get to this point called the dip where
that's when people decide whether to
stick or quit.
Yeah, right.
And most people will quit in the dip.
Yeah,
and it's your accelerating returns only happen after the dip. So you have to be willing to kind of suffer for a little bit to push through that.
Yeah.
Which doesn't always have to look like hard work. Sometimes it looks like taking a break. Sometimes it looks like, I'm going to leave this for a week.
Yeah.
And let my subconscious work on it and come back to it fresh. I've definitely done that.
Because I think for me, I'm not going to lie, this may seem bizarre to some people, but I definitely think I had a producer block for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, I just couldn't write anything.
And
And I had to take a step away from it. I was like, no, I'm totally fucking it off for a while. And then when I came back, it was like, I've had a break now. And that was coming to Canada. Yeah. I took that break. And then now it's like, I'll get back into it.
Do you find that by taking a break, a whole bunch of things that you had worked on or things with production kind of consolidated and you're starting at a new plateau?
I kind of looked at the stuff that I did before and I thought, there's a foundation there. Yeah. But it's not to my... There's more I can go now because I've had that break.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, when I was doing it, I was just like, nothing. I was getting not bored of it, but I was getting sick of it because nothing was happening. And I started to hate it.
Right.
And then I just sort of thought, no, I'll take a break. But it ended up being 2 years.
Yeah.
Because I moved to Canada. And I was like, Joe, what? I'll just write it out. Now I'm doing it, it's like I'm actually a more better mindset for doing it.
That's great.
But I'm not saying everyone has to take a 2 year break.
Yeah.
But I did, and it benefited me. People were like, why the fuck 2 years? But
I think what you were saying is, I look at it almost like a compressor or a limiter. When you're in it, there's only so far you can go, but when you step back and take that little break, whether it's a weekend or a year or a month, you kind of take the top off of it again, and you can kind of, like you said, you can go further. You don't have that same limit from like the box that you're constantly in, running in your head. Yeah.
What about so going back to where you decided to make the move? This is it. I'm going to start making some electronic music.
Yeah,
what was the first bit of equipment or software? Like when you first went, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and buy something. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make a song.
And what style of music was it? Sorry, I just want to try that in.
Of course. I was mucking about with like I said, Cakewalk back in Montreal.
Oh, so yeah.
Way back. Just kind of, it came with a bundle of loops, and I was just assembling those loops, and I didn't even know what I was doing. But that was an important thing. You know what? Okay, I got to go further back. I got to go to like junior high school, middle school. And a big thing for me was I didn't have access to DJ gear, and I wanted to be in a band, but I didn't have friends who wanted to do it, and we didn't have that kind of commitment and energy. So I would make pause button tapes.
Okay.
Like, the tape decks with the two tape decks next to each other, and then you record, but you just basically making loops or sampling. And I had such a huge collection of music and tapes that I would, like, spoken word and music and all kinds of stuff, comedy. And so I would make little cut-ups, and I'd take like a 90-minute tape and do both sides of just like pause, stuff, button, cut, and it was just like a mishmash. I wish I still had that tape.
Oh, no doubt.
So that's where I would say that kind of experimentation and that kind of playfulness came in. But then Cakewalk in university, and then I got more serious. I experimented with a cracked version of Fruity Loops for a few years. I was making hip hop instrumentals. I was trying to make house music. I don't know that I was very good at it. And then I kind of got serious and bought Logic in 2006 or 2007, about the same time I got Serato. Finally got my first MacBook. And that changed things for me, because all of a sudden is very, very professional, very, very, the depth is there, and it goes as far as you can go. So I was way out of my depth at first. Logic to me had a very steep learning curve. I was making house music, and if I go back and I listen to some of those songs that I made then, I didn't put anything out. I didn't release anything. I wasn't at that level. But if I go back and listen to it, I can hear a lot of the trace elements of where I'm at now. I can hear them then. So it's interesting in that way. And I took a really long time. I was DJing that whole time, but I was again mucking about with software and trying to make music, but not really getting there. It's taken a long time. And really it took until moving to Vancouver and starting Groundwerk and getting to know about, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a little bit. And creating a musical community and learning off other people, like peer-to-peer mentorship, and watching a lot of YouTube tutorials, but really the in-person learning and the bouncing stuff off of other people. And because it's such a can be such a lonely and solo venture. I mean, it's just you and your laptop basically, or in your synths or whatever it is you have, for days and hours and weeks of just like, staring at a screen essentially, which is so far disconnected from the experience of music and dancing and people and
absolutely
togetherness and all that wonderful reason that we love it. We love it so much. The sharing. Exactly. We're like isolated and we're staring at a box and we're probably have terrible posture and our back hurts and the cat's jumping on you and
I'm definitely a person that would learn better if I had other people with me, and I agree with you. I think the idea of having other people there that you can bounce ideas with is, I'm sure for some people, very, very beneficial. I know it would be for me.
Yeah. And that's where the impetus for I was living here, and because I moved back to Nelson for a few years in my adult life, in my early 30s, and lived there for a couple of years, and very quickly had a show on the radio and was running events at several of the different venues and knew everybody in town and didn't pay cover anywhere and had musical community. Mm-hmm. And then I moved from that to here to Vancouver and had to start all over again. Didn't have anything in that way. I left a very warm, welcoming, active community, and I came to nothing, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so I felt very lonely and isolated artistically. Mm-hmm. And I had friends in Calgary from some festivals that I'd played in Alberta, and watched what they were doing with a project there called Studio Social, and saw that their music was really getting better really fast in what I was seeing online. And I was like, there's something's going on there. Like, why are they getting better so quickly? And then I was like, it must be because they're getting together and sharing. Mm-hmm. It has to be because of that. And I was like, oh man, I wish I could go to Calgary and go to the thing,
hang out with those guys.
I wish I had that. And I did that. I'm not the brightest. Like, I'm not the brightest. So I was like, I wish I could go to Calgary. And I did that for like almost a year. And then it dawned on me one day, I was like, I could do that here. Yeah. So I called my friend up, who Isis Graham, who also known as Esset, who
she runs a lot of stuff in Calgary, right?
Yeah,
I briefly spoke to her before. Yeah.
So she was part of the group that started that, and so I called her up and said, hey, I'm thinking of doing a similar project out in Vancouver. I don't want to step on your toes or rip you off in a sense. Can I have your blessing to do that? Mm-hmm. And she was extraordinarily helpful. Again, another person who was warm and welcoming and willing to share. Mm-hmm. And she gave me some pointers on running the first year, and it was really, really great. So that's where Groundwerk started.
Cool.
And that started in 2015. It's now 2022, so we're hitting our 7th year. Our 55th event, the next one, monthly event. We've premiered over probably close to 1,500 songs from several hundred artists in the Vancouver area and beyond, because since during the pandemic we've gone online on Twitch, so people have been able to submit from all over the world and get stuff from the East Coast. I have a friend in Turkey that sends stuff. It's great.
So for anyone that doesn't know, what Groundworks is all about, maybe just to explain to the viewers.
You bet.
The whole, obviously you just briefly said it's a social thing, but when you do your events, what's it really entail?
Well, the core of it's several things now. Mm-hmm. The core of it is, and has always been, an in-person monthly meetup. Where we have a keynote speaker or basically we do a very informal interview style thing like we're doing here with someone from the industry, so that people can learn something. Yeah. Whether it's a promoter or a DJ or someone from SOCAN, the performing royalty and rights body, or someone who runs a festival. Yeah. We've had people from
musical TED Talk almost.
Yeah, it's a musical TED Talk. But it's very much a dance music TED Talk.
Yeah. So
we do that, and that's about an hour. And then after that, there's a submission portal online, groundwerkvancouver.com. Groundwerk is spelled WERK, like Kraftwerk. And people can submit their music. And we play, sorry, I just need to get some water. I was up till 8 a.m. DJing, so a little bit. There we go, I'm back. People submit their music, and after the keynote, we listen to it ranges from about a dozen to about 25 tracks from people who are in the room, which is amazing, of all skill levels. Although I would say over the years, the skill level has gotten quite high.
Because it's a group, right? It pretty much is a community that's all grown. And
we've been running them at the Anza Club in Mount Pleasant in Vancouver. Looking forward to returning there very soon, probably next month for our next one. It's spring of 2022 if you're watching this in the future. We get about, I would say, 60 to 90 people out on a Wednesday night for an odd producers meetup, which to me that's been fairly consistent over 7 years, and that's perfect. That's success to me for that type of event. I thought maybe we'd get 15 or 20 people, and it's much, much, much more than that. Yeah. So that's been very, very heartwarming and feel very supportive in that.
Do you guys pretty much let every track that gets sent in get played, or is
almost?
Because that must be quite an influx.
Hard.
Yeah.
You know what? It's a fairly steady 20 to 30.
Yeah. Of the same artists each time?
No, I would say there is a core group for sure. Yeah. And then there's always people rotating in and out. And then some people go away for a while and come back.
Yeah.
But there is a core group that's there every time.
They're in their writer's block.
Yeah. But there's as it should be, there's a steady group and some influx and some outflow at the same time.
And you guys, like, at the end, hang out and chat?
Oh yeah, I mean it's a social.
Yeah.
The point of it really is the social aspect.
Is the hanging out.
Yeah. Because while their music's playing up on the screen and we project their either their logo or their face and all their socials, so people can go and follow them, name of the track, so people can look it up after. We project on the wall where the track is playing, and then people are just hanging out and having a beer and chatting, and that's where the magic happens.
For sure.
It's like I used to run improv workshops, and the magic would happen at lunchtime when the participants got to chat with each other. And that was always the best part of the intro to improv workshop was lunch, because they're all excited and they're making connections. And it was like, that's
where ideas and things and
that's where the friendships come. That's where all that stuff begins.
Yeah, so. I mean, I've been meaning to come to Groundwerk. I just never got a chance to. Because I couldn't afford to get down. I didn't have a car coming to Canada. But what was the first one like doing it? Was it quite nervous like, when you did it? Because you think, will these people turn up?
Absolutely.
Did you have a lot? Was it a small amount?
Our very first one was at the Beaumont, April 22nd, 2015. And I expected maybe 25 people. Yeah. We had 89.
Wow.
Some of the people who showed up at the very first one are still part of it today.
That's cool.
I remember distinctly this kind of imposing guy came in with his ball cap, kind of like yours, just kind of low on his head, and kind of had a bit of not a scowl, but just kind of like a set face that was like, and I was like, I'm scared of this man. And then he played his track, and I was like, this track is amazing, but I'm scared of this man. And now, many years later, he's my best friend, and we've been a DJ duo together, played Gorgomish back-to-back all night. I'm releasing his album on my label, coming this spring.
Cool.
We've done remixes for each other. We've gotten each other on different labels. Yeah. I got him on Kneaded Pains because I got a release on Kneaded Pains, so I got him to do a remix for me. Denson Pika's label.
Would you like, please be a good track, because I really don't want to tell this guy his track sucks, please be a good track, because I've got to be the guy who goes up to him and goes, sorry man, your track needs a lot of work. What?
You know what's great is now we have a point in our friendship where we tell each other frankly if the track sucks.
That's probably what makes it better, right?
Yeah. And nobody's hurt.
No, because that's,
the amazing thing is that for both of us, I think most of the time, like 80 to 90% of the time, the track doesn't suck. So that's really cool.
Did you do the first keynote on the first night then?
I always talk at the beginning, like I warm the room and I welcome people, because I have that acting and improv background. Yeah. So I'm very comfortable in front of people.
I was going to say, because when you got 80 something people coming in and you walk up, you're like, shit, this is actually
no.
You're like, hello, welcome to the ground.
No, that part I'm not worried about.
Sweet.
It was more because I'm very comfortable with that, because I do, like in the improv shows, I do hosting, so I'm very comfortable in front of groups of large people.
Yeah.
And even not having a plan and being on the mic and being in front of a group of large people, I'm actually looking forward to it. You're talking about it, and it's making me excited for the next Groundwerk.
Good. I'll make a trip down there.
Yeah, which should be. I'm just confirming the dates with our venue, but. I was shooting some messages back and forth with the manager, so I should have a date nailed down this week, I'm thinking towards the end of March, which should be our next one and our first one in person in 2 years because of the pandemic. So,
and for people out there too, if you're not a producer, you're still allowed to go down.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful event for anybody who's creative, for anybody who's looking to find community and likes other creatives, for anybody who's interested in music, for anybody especially who's interested in dance music and nightlife culture, who wants to know the people who do that and who are part of that in the scene.
That's a great concept.
It actively attracts people who are open and warm, and I would say like the people who are jerks kind of weed themselves out. So we have a very supportive core group of people. And that's been really powerful for me. It's been I people keep saying to me it's been really powerful for them. So
nice.
It's something I intend to continue doing as long as I can.
So as I haven't been, and we get a lot of UK listeners as well, obviously, UK following and stuff. How would I send a track into you? What's the process for me to come to Groundwerk?
Sure.
Like, obviously I've got to turn up and show my face, but the process of sending you the song, and then when I'm there, like, how do you? Is it a pick of a draw, or do you have people set out in a?
So it's
by BPM or
no, it's people sending their music there's a kind of an open submission time, and then we cut off about a week beforehand, so we had time to process everything and do a playlist and set everything up before the night. And then on the night, it's just a playlist, and I go by feel. I'm just like this, because I've been a DJ for so long, and it's just like.
So do you actually have a set of CDJs there and DJ?
No, we don't DJ it because it's multi-genre.
Yeah.
And people also not only want to hear, they want to hear the intro, they want to hear the outro. They want the whole track. They want the whole track.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's almost like a jazz club. Like, we clap after the tracks.
Yeah.
Like,
nice.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Which is great.
No, that's awesome.
So yeah, I'm very much, I started in house, and I've definitely turned a very sharp corner into techno. I wouldn't say it's a sharp corner. They're right next door to each other, but I'm very much a techno guy now. The label, Groundwerk, has evolved into a label because we had all this music sitting there and basically live A&Ring hundreds and thousands of tracks.
Similar to myself, yeah.
So it made sense to have an outlet for that.
Absolutely.
Since then, I've focused the label down to techno because it's what I DJ. It's because I wanted a unified sound for the label as it interfaces with the world who maybe don't know about the meetup and it has no meaning to them. They've just found the label. I wanted that to be consistent.
And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off at all. I know I totally just did. But is your label? Do you take tracks from people that have never gone to a Groundwerk event?
Absolutely.
Or had their track on it? Yeah,
I would say
not just for.
It's both. It originated as a way to be an outlet for people who were contributing to the monthly events. But I think it's important to have a blend of both, where Groundwerk meets the world. And I've got an artist from Russia that I'm releasing, and I'm actually I thought about that as there's some events unfolding in the world right now. Again, if you're watching this in the future, I hope it played out well.
So do I.
And I thought about it, and I was like, is now the time to release that? Will there be pushback? Will there be an ill perception because of world events at the moment? I would
really like to think not.
I would like to think not too.
I think
not everyone's thinking the same.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that the world is open-minded enough to know that it's not the people. That's this situation's about. So
exactly.
I don't think releasing someone's music because they come from a certain part of the world has anything to do with anything myself.
Absolutely.
That's my opinion. But
cheers for that, because I had a moment where I crossed my mind, and then I went, well, no, music is the great unifier.
Absolutely.
And if we can come together around this, we're having a message that runs counter to some of the unfortunate events that are unfolding.
Absolutely.
And you can't live life to think, I'm worried what people will think and say.
Yeah.
You just got to go with what you think you want to do best, and like Craig said, music is a unifier. So if isn't many people in music are very open, warm, and not narrow-minded, so they're going to accept the fact that hey, this guy's got some great music, and it might change people's perspective.
And that's it. It to me is it's that coming together. Music is about peace. Music is about togetherness and community, and about connection and
absolutely
building those bridges. So that's where I've come to with it.
That's wicked, man.
The whole part of it is, like you said, with what you're doing now, producing with other people and getting together like a group, but just even the raw part of it, being in a club on a dance floor with a whole load of people that you don't know, all of a sudden you're all smiling and dancing together. Beautiful. Just because of the music that's playing. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's a magical thing.
Yeah, and if we're in the situation where, you had to pick up a gun the next day and go fight on something, you might be a lot less likely to if you knew that you'd just seen that person on the dance floor the night before.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. It's just that, it is. I want to step back. It's been in the back of my mind. I want to step back just a little bit to your producing.
Sure.
Because like you and Craig have discussed about, you benefit more from being in person. A bit like Groundwerk, sharing things. You did a masterclass with Richie Hawtin, I've seen.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because I always dig into people's profiles and have a little look and try and get some history. And you've done it with pretty much one of the biggest legends in techno. So.
Yeah, that was quite something. So a couple of years ago, the National Music Center in Calgary held a masterclass with Richie Hawtin, a one-day masterclass, kind of a quick shot with Richie Hawtin.
Wow.
And it was quite a treat. And so I applied for it thinking I would never get in.
How many people were there?
Might have been 7 or 8 of us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I never thought I would be one of those people, but I was like, I'm going to apply. It's Richie Hawtin. He's coming back to Canada, and it's at the National Music Center, which is an incredible venue. It cost me nothing to apply. I'm going to apply. And I got in. So I made the trip to Calgary, and there we were for a day. We played him our tracks, and he gave us some feedback, and he was incredibly humble, and he was incredibly open, and he was incredibly engaged, for which I was really happy. Thinking back on it now, I would have different questions for him because I know more of what I need.
Yeah,
and I would come at it at a different level, but. It was just such an incredible thing to have a connection with someone like that.
Experience. I've heard he's very much a very nice man.
He was
a people person.
He was gracious.
Mm-hmm. I got a friend back in my hometown in the UK, and he done a similar thing back in the UK, and my friend Paul Neary, he's obviously a techno producer and DJ, or he plays live. And he follows Richie around pretty much everywhere, like idolises him in what he does. And he has his music played by Richie Hawtin as well, and done similar sort of thing in masterclass. And he said the same thing as well, that he's a really nice guy. Any questions, he'll answer the best he can. I mean, he's very, very knowledgeable, obviously. And it's crazy.
It's nice to with someone who's on his level will do that still.
Yeah, like, do you know what I mean? Like, think as a small guy, right?
Yeah.
The little guy. And
I asked him, one of the questions I asked him was like, how many people does it take to run you as Richie Hawtin, the brand? Like, and without even thinking, he said 12. I'm like, wow. And you took the time to come here. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I forget where I got this, so I'm probably paraphrasing something. So source needed. But someone was talking about always having a hand reaching ahead of you. So like to the next level that you want to get to. So always moving forward, but always having a hand out behind you, pulling up the people behind you at the same time, so that you're connected and you're always moving, but you're not alone. And him taking the time to do that, to me, is very much him having his hand behind him, pulling up the people behind him,
as well as his big world in front of him.
Yeah.
So it's almost,
that's cool.
It's almost like an apprenticeship analogy.
Yeah.
Like if you were a tradesman and you went through your whole trade and you didn't train anyone else, what's the point of doing the trade?
Absolutely.
The whole point is you learn your skill and then you pass it on to the people below.
Absolutely.
So that they can come up, and sometimes the apprentice is going to get better than you.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because one day he might get you a job somewhere or something.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. So have you met any other famous people for that particular reason, where you've learnt lessons from, or you've had conversations with?
Absolutely.
Yeah, who have you met?
Well, some people that I booked to come here.
Yeah.
It's because Groundwerk also does events, so
we'll get onto that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
we started booking some techno acts to come to Vancouver, and we've done local showcases, and we've worked with Monstercat to produce a second stage for their compound, and we've done events like listening parties at Base Coast, and we've been active outside of just hosting a listening party. So 2018, I brought Layton Giordani, who's now a huge drum code star. Brought him here. He was he was already a star, but he just put out Space Date, and he was just like rocketing to stardom, and caught him on his upswing. And as the promoter, you ask the talent, you're like, hey, we'll get you dinner if you're feeling social. We'll go out for dinner. If you're not, just chill in your hotel room. And he was like, let's get dinner. And one of the things I learned two things. The rider is quite often different from what the artists want. So the rider is what the management will send on saying, artist must have 4 bottles of Coca-Cola plus 2 bottles of Patron plus 3 white t-shirts plus 4 Twix bars sitting by the DJ booth.
Have you had that before?
Have I had that sent to me, or have I put that out there?
Have you put that out there? Like, what your requests are? I've had it twice.
I'm not at that level yet.
No, I've had it twice. I'm not at that level, but I had it twice, and I asked for a bag of Maltesers, and 3 bottles of Ribena. You know Ribena?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Do you know Ribena?
Yeah. And he's like, "Do you really want that?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I've got to drive, and I need as much sugar as I can to keep me awake, and I like chocolate."
Funnily enough, back to the Richie Houghton thing, the night after we did the masterclass, he was playing at the Hifi Club, RIP the Hifi Club in Calgary, and then I was playing the night after that at the Hifi Club. So the night after Richie Houghton, his rider was still in the fridge, so we got to eat and drink his rider because he didn't touch it.
Really,
It was like a bottle of sake and all this fresh fruit and like all this incredible stuff, and it was just sitting in the fridge going to get chucked out. So we're like, a couple of the DJs that were playing were like, I guess we can have that.
Well, maybe like you were saying, it was his management that said he wanted it and he didn't really want it.
Doesn't he make his own sake as well?
He does. He has his own sake brand.
Yeah, he does.
So Layton's management sent along his rider, and we fulfilled that because you have to contractually. And then we got there, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't really drink anymore." I'm like, "We bought you a $200 bottle of tequila because that's what's on your rider." He's like, "Yeah, I don't really drink anymore." And that was one of the things I learned just in having that conversation with him, is that when you get to a certain level, a lot of people stop partying because they have to fulfill things. It's like an athlete. They have to fulfill stuff at such a high level so often that they can't afford to have the off days and the down days and the recovery time.
Oh, you can burn out too. A lot of artists have burned out.
Your mic?
Right?
Yeah, sure. Is it
it's
down a little bit?
Down a bit, yeah.
Probably still got me because I project quite a bit.
But yeah, I think over the years, a lot of artists have burnt out.
Yeah, except for Ricardo Villalobos. He's still going.
Or Solomon. Solomon's still going out there, like dancing amongst the crowd.
So learned that from him. Also, he was an avid skateboarder, as was I, and a snowboarder. Growing up in British Columbia, it's the heaven for that. And kind of got back into skateboarding a little bit this year. But he was saying he had to quit skateboarding because he showed me a scar on his arm, and he's like, I broke my arm and I can't have that in my career.
This is how
I can't do it. So I'm starting to think like, oh no, maybe I need to not do that, because if I get hurt, I can't DJ.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So met him, and then through him at ADE that year.
You went to ADE?
Went to ADE in 2018.
Did you go with Cardano?
Say it again, sorry?
Cardano went to that one, didn't
Yes.
he?
Yes, we were there at the same time. Yeah.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah.
He said he went to it. He said there's a lot of, he said a lot of stereotypes there, people with like...
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you watched his show that we did with him, but he was just like taking the piss out of like how some people are. But he said everyone's just on their phones. Yeah. Like when they're listening to tracks. I was like, wow. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but what was ADE like? Yeah.
It was good. Because I booked him in September and ADE was in October, he's like, I'll connect you when we're at ADE. So he got my girlfriend and I VIP backstage to drum code at Gashouder for Awakenings.
Nice.
So we were backstage and I got to meet a lot of people. Like, now I'm blanking, but a lot of the crew like Weska and Boxia, and was watching right behind Enrico San Giuliano while he was playing, and Ida Emberg and everybody who was playing that night. We were right behind them.
Cool.
Didn't get to meet Adam Bayer because right when he was kind of coming in and playing a set, I had to fuck off and play a set and then come back. So came back for Emily Lenz's set. So I feel embarrassed saying that, but I missed Adam Bayer's set and didn't get to say hi to him backstage. But like Pig and Dan were there, and Sweet. Bart Skills was there. Like nice. Everybody was in the backstage area.
Yeah.
So met quite a few people there.
That's cool.
And then I booked Mastercraft to come here before the pandemic, and now Jesse and I have become friends, and he does all the mastering for the label, and has become an integral part of the sound of the label, which is really cool. So it's interesting to be a really small town kid, and then all of a sudden I'm kind of rubbing shoulders and meeting and working with
these really big people.
With these really big people, it's been quite a journey.
So to be fair though, you've put the work in.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for saying that.
It's not like it just happened overnight, is it?
I've done the groundwork.
Right, you've done the groundwork. Oh, hey, what do you know? Is that with an ink?
But so, did you do the events first before the listening parties, or was it the events after the listening parties?
With Groundwork, the listening parties came first, and very quickly we started doing showcases for local talent because we were meeting so many people.
Yeah.
And I keep saying we because at the time there were more of us involved in the project. Some people have now dropped away to go and pursue their own projects, which is what Groundwork was actually about. When that team at the time first met, we were like, I want to develop all of us, and I want all of us to go off and do our own things, and that's exactly what's happened.
Cool.
So it's fulfilled its mission. So now Groundwork is mostly me, but at the time it was definitely we. And we started with the listening parties and very quickly did local showcases. We did a summer party it was a huge storm. Like power went out to like 70,000 people. It was a major windstorm, and we still had like 150 people out.
Nice.
To this little warehousey thing on Industrial Ave. I'll never forget that.
And you still had power, obviously.
But what was funny is I was actually outside the building under a little covered area next to the train tracks, and it started to rain, and we realized that the covering had holes in it. So the water started to drip through and collect and pool at the bottom, and the subs were on the floor.
Oh God!
And all the wires were on the floor, and the water started to rise. So we had half the party like throw tarps over the gear. Music never stopped.
Yeah.
And then the other half of the part, like other people were picking up the sub and holding it while other people put stuff underneath it so that it would wouldn't get flooded by the water. And like we put CDJ cases down to stand on while we were playing, and it was just part and parcel of what we were doing, that we all came together to make this work and happen. And, potentially very dangerous situation, but that's what makes it memorable.
Oh, for sure. They're some of the best parties.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And then we did a winter showcase, and then from there it was just, we started doing shows.
Just started rolling.
Yeah.
So I want to go into the your producer sort of stuff. So what was you mentioned you started Fruity Loops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Did you build a studio in your apartment or house, whatever you live in?
Yeah.
And what was the first piece of equipment that you bought? Like first hardware.
First hardware.
Yeah.
First hardware would probably be a Korg Monotron, which is this $80 ribbon synth.
The ribbon one,
that big, battery powered.
Guys. Yeah.
That was probably my first synth. I had a keyboard when I was a kid, like a Yamaha keyboard, which I wish I still had. But the Monotron was probably my first synthesizer.
For such a small little box,
it does a lot, actually.
It does quite a lot.
Yeah, it's making me want to get it back out. You get some wild sweeps and some pretty wild sounds out of it.
Right.
But like the Volcas,
yeah. So, but now I've got a Volca FM, which is a really cool synth that I want to dive into. I've got a Meeblip Geode, which I would recommend to anybody. It's a Calgary company. It's a wild little box. It's about that big.
Made in Canada.
That's
good.
Meeblip Geode, check it out. Meeblip is MEEBLIP, I think. And they're not expensive, but they sound huge.
Really?
I've got a Prophet 8, and I've got a Yamaha DX7, and I've got a Behringer Neutron, and a Behringer Model D, and a Korg ARP Odyssey, and I'm forgetting stuff, but I have quite a few synths now. Yeah.
We've talked about Behringer a few times. Me and Brad quite like Behringer.
Just
bang for buck.
Yeah, bang for buck. You're not going to beat it.
Right.
And the Behringer Neutron is like my favorite synth.
Yeah.
It's semi-modular. Full modular still really scares me. But it's semi-modular, so I feel like I'm dipping my toe in, but I can get out if I need to. I'm in the kiddie pool of modular. And it just has such a rough, like, it just suits the type of music I'm making. So, and it's one of Behringer's kind of original synths. It's not a knockoff of someone else's patent. Yeah. It's actually their original.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Model D? Because I'm looking to purchase it, and I'm like,
you should get one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would recommend getting both if you can.
The Poly and the Model.
The Neutron and the
Neutron
Model D. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They have different tonality, and the Model D is really great.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a Moog.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, and I've used that on some records already that are out and released. Yeah.
And you got Prophet 8.
Prophet 8. I'm actually on loan to my production partner, The GOAT, who was the intimidating man that I described at the beginning from the first Groundwerk. His name is Chris, and he's known as The GOAT.
He recently followed our show, and thanks very much. And I messaged him, so thanks very much.
Yeah, he's a great dude, and he's a great interview too. So if you ever want to have him on,
I said to him, when you come down, we'll get him on.
Yeah.
End of March, I think he's here.
Is he?
Yeah, and he'll have an album coming up after that, so it'll be a great time to catch him.
That'd be a good chat, yeah.
Yeah.
So see how scary he is.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
I'll have to do the door so he can fit through.
But yeah, production-wise, I would say I have a lot of synths. Sometimes I turn them on and use them, and sometimes I'm in the box. Logic has such an incredible package of, like, Alchemy is such an incredible synth within Logic. The sampler in Logic is so powerful, and I have some great sample libraries. And I bought some third-party synths that I really, really love. And sometimes I'm just working in the box.
Really?
It's just easy.
Yeah.
It's right there, and it's on your computer.
You can buy VST plugins for anything. I got the Poly 6 and the Mono 6 Korg. Plug. They were for free at one point, and I just was like, get now. And then I think they're wicked.
Yeah. What about changing the subject slightly from, like, producing and stuff? What about, I mean, we could just talk about Vancouver clubs, but what about some of your favourite clubs? Not necessarily to play in, but the ones you've been to. But yeah, for sure, which are your favourite clubs that you've played and frequented?
Well,
you can give us a top 3 or 4.
The top 3 or 4. My top one in Vancouver is Gorgomish.
Obviously,
absolutely,
I think a lot of us say
hands down. If you haven't been to Gorgomish, definitely check it out.
Every
Vancouver.
time the sound system in there is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's I think 17 or 18 years deep too. So it's an institution here in Vancouver. It's an after hours. It's 2 to 8 a.m. Friday and Saturday.
I might even make some T-shirts. We all love Gorgomish.
There you go. Yeah, right? They'd love that, I'm sure. So that would be a top spot for me to play in the city and to go to in the city. But around the world, I loved the spectacle and the energy and the shape and the massiveness of Gashoder, of course, because it's just such a iconic place, and the fire going off in the middle of the set, and there's an old gas processing plant. It's just kind of got that industrial thing to it, and seeing those acts there. So at that scale of things, I thought that was quite a place. I've had great times in very small places too. I liked Actvarium in Budapest.
Budapest,
eh?
Probably because I saw Rodhead there, and he's one of my favorite artists.
Rodhead, I met him and had a chat with him, because in our local area we have Nick Van Chuli's from there, Mark Knight, and all them boys. Yeah, that's from there I'm from, and he has Horton Play, and Rodhead came, but I don't think he was quite as big back then.
Right,
and he was just walking around, just casually, like around the fair and everything, and I was just like. And he just pointed at me, and I was like, "You are who I think you are." He's like, "Oh, I'm Rodhead." I'm like, "Okay, man." Like, no one's actually acknowledged that he's here, walking amongst the crowd. And I was like, "Can we have a chat?" He's like, "Yeah." And he was wicked to talk to.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
He played on the same night as like Anya Schneider and Horton. He was in the Techno bar, and Carl Cox played. And
wow.
Yeah, but it just blew my mind where he was he was like looking around because we had like cotton candy and stuff, and he's just like, oh, I'm buying some cotton candy. He's just like minding his own business, and people bombing past him, and I was like,
he's incredible. He's a one heck of a producer and a great performer, and he plays a great set. So it was, I think, part of my fondness for that club is seeing him there for sure.
Yeah.
I have this memory, and only for this one particular reason, not only for this one particular reason, it was a great show and a great club to play, but specifically for me, there was a place called Y Afterhours in Edmonton that I played a few years ago. And the booth was so clear, the monitoring in the booth was so clear that I barely touched my headphones all night.
Really?
And to me, that was just, it was special for some reason. Mm-hmm. So that will always stick with me in some of my top experiences. I've never experienced monitoring that clear in a larger room of a club before. Gorgomish is pretty good too, actually, but never anything like that. So I'd love to go back there and play sometime.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Top clubs around the world. I had a great time in a sports arena in Bulgaria, in Sofia, at a drum code party, seeing Denson Pika and Julian Jewel and Timo, and because the Bulgarians were so friendly and having such a great time, and everyone was partying their faces off, but no one was mangled.
Yeah.
And everyone was so friendly. And we were also welcomed in there, and my girlfriend knew the promoter, so we were brought backstage and we were brought on stage, and we were having drinks with the guys while they were playing, and so it was kind of a special moment. So I think part of I'm definitely noticing as I'm talking here that part of my fondness for certain places has to do with how we were treated. And again, back to that welcoming in thing.
Yeah. The relationships.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you've met quite a few people through your career then.
Yeah, it was meeting Denson Pika. That was the same trip to ADE. We went to Budapest and went to Sofia at the same time in that trip, and it was through meeting Denson Pika at that show that I got on their label, because a few years later I pinged them and I said, hey, do you remember me? I met you in Sofia. And they're like, oh, of course we remember you. I'm like, can I send you some music? They're like, yeah, of course, man. Don't you? And it was way easier than I thought it would be. Yeah.
So that's good, man.
It was cool. Yeah.
It's really good.
What another one I was gonna guess, this is going back a little bit again.
Sure.
So we talked, obviously your first turntables were some Geminis.
Yeah.
And so when did you first transition into CDJs? And did you buy your own set, or did someone else have a set that you played on? And when did you decide to sort of, obviously you've got to move that way nowadays, but you know, when did that sort of start?
CDJs were in clubs at the same time when I was playing records in clubs in 2004, 2005, 2006. I never played CDs. After records, I went to Serato and played off my computer using turntables, and then
with the DVS, did
you? With the DVS, and then started playing CD control for Serato. So friends had CDJs. I then bought a set of CDJs off my friend to use as controls for Serato, but still never played CDs. Maybe 4 or 5 times. Not like I play CDs and I show up with a book of CDs. And then really went from Serato to playing USB keys. Yeah. So a few years ago.
Yeah.
For me.
I remember when the Serato first came out, someone in our city got it first, and he was telling me about it. He's like, yeah, man, I got this new digital vinyl shit. Yeah. He's like, it's fucking mad. Yeah. Put your laptop on, and you pick the needle up. I was like, fuck off. So what are you going on about? Like, that's some magic stuff right there. And he's like, no, straight up, come around, check it out. Yeah. Blew my mind.
I remember
my mind.
Same thing. I was
just like, what the fuck, man? This is some Gowd wizardry.
It was back when I was in Guelph. I saw the first person I saw using Final Scratch, I think it was. Okay. And it was mind blowing. You're like, what are they doing? They can do that? Yeah. That's amazing.
Now what's the new one that obviously there's so much stuff now, but the Phase is the one that a lot of people are using now.
Okay, yeah.
Right, which is, I think it's called Phase. I'm sure it's called Phase. Same thing, goes on any turntable. It's a little block, right, that you just put over your pin,
Yeah.
And then you don't even need the needle on there.
That's right.
Right, it's just Bluetoothed over. Again, I've seen some guys just holding it and like
scratching
with it in the air, because as long as it's Bluetoothed in and spinning, it doesn't really need to be anywhere. You can
right.
You know, it's amazing technology. It's fantastic. Again, you know, talking about Northern House and that new Pioneer mixer. Man, that shit just blows my mind.
Even the 3000s, man, they're
great.
They've got like the picture inside now where the vinyl bit used to be inside of the album cover.
I swear, and I don't know if I'm not going to get my phone out, but I swear, and it could be just a weird fucking YouTube thing, but I swear I saw a CDJ player that you can put tapes in now as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it wasn't Pioneer. It might just be a stupid fucking meme thing, but I was like, what is going on in the world now?
It wouldn't surprise me. People are doing mixtapes again.
Yeah, I know. I know there was a guy back in the day that used to do it with the old reel-to-reel tapes.
Yeah.
2 of those.
Yeah. Somebody's still doing a reel-to-reel set, and I just saw it recently. 2 different people.
Yeah.
I can't think of who, but
next level.
Yeah, really next level.
Next level shit.
That's going like to the rotary mixers. That's becoming a bit of a thing now, isn't it?
Everyone's going back to that.
A lot of the manufacturers have come out with the rotary models now, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I like the crossfader. I do every now and again like to
use the crossfader
out a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like having it there. Right. I don't know if I could ever just have just that.
I could do that. I tend to not use the crossfader myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big CDJ fan. I think they're great. I think it's a great platform.
Mm-hmm.
I think they make a lot of sense. I think they're well laid out. I think they're I actually would really like to learn on them. I wouldn't mind talking to Dom and Bryn about going down to Northern House and having a little jam out with Dom. I'm going there tomorrow to do that with someone on my label who wants to learn. We'll learn
to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to learn the equipment. And again, that's why we were talking to them the other night. That's why they've set it up there so people can pay. Because obviously you got to pay your dues, people.
Sure.
Pay and go down there and learn how to use state-of-the-art equipment that you could... Most people, well, not most people, I would guarantee you like 90% of people would never want to invest that amount of money.
Yeah, not to have at home. It's not cheap.
No.
That's not a home setup. You can go and get a good Pioneer controller.
Yeah, that's what I have. That's what I have for home. I have a Pioneer controller.
It does the same stuff-ish.
Yeah, and it's laid out the same, so you're going to be able to translate it to the bigger system.
Yeah, and again, they very much recognize that when they've been building all their products.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah,
the ecosystem and the layout is the same. The ergonomics are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all I have at home is a Pioneer DJ controller.
Yeah.
So you pretty much need. Yeah.
Which model you got?
I have a DDJ 1000. SX 1000. It's the gold one.
Yeah,
so like C3PO. Even they're not cheap, are they?
What's that?
Even they're not cheap.
No, they're not. But $1,000 versus $10,000 for a CDJ.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And again, they do some of their controllers now are $3,000, but they do the ones that are cheaper too. And and if you are someone that wants to get into a controller style of DJing, and we've talked about this on other shows, there is cheaper models that do similar stuff that you can learn on at home. You don't have to invest $1,000 if you don't want to.
That's right.
But if you were going to spend the money, you'd be better off spending $1,000 on a Pioneer one.
I think
that was going to be the same as what you're going to approach in a club.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's really worth the time. Most venues and clubs are not going to let you come in and bring your controller and your laptop and put it down and disrupt everything.
No.
Some do, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But you're expected to be able to work on the industry standard equipment, and so it's really worth the time, and such a great thing to have a place like Northern House where you can go in and rent some time. It's not that expensive. It's worth it, and go through your reps and figure your stuff out so that when you hit the club, you're ready.
Yeah.
And they've got 2000s as well, didn't they? Yep. So some clubs haven't gone from the 2000s to the 3000s yet.
Yeah.
So that's what you said yesterday, wasn't it? They had 2 and the 3.
For you guys, obviously, I don't know how many of the different models you use, but you've obviously used quite a few of the models, I would think, of the CDJs now.
Yeah.
Is there much difference between the models, and how many of the functions change within each one? Like when they're stepping up, is there major changes?
Well, I'd say the big one is touchscreen now, which I was so leery of because you're, sweat and drinks and humidity and all that stuff of something glitching and not working properly. I haven't had an issue yet, so that's been really cool. Touchscreen has been a really big one.
Did much change from the 2000 to the 2000 Nexus?
It's just like an iPhone. The screen got bigger.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
From the 2000 to 2000 Nexus, I can't put my finger on it, but I'm sure there are changes because they made a different model.
Yeah.
Nexus, I know you can connect differently, and Nexus itself is the connections of how they wire together.
But how many actual functions change? Like, really, like what functions are on it? No, it's just
honestly, I'm using
ultimately your mixers doing the magic.
Yeah,
right.
More hotkeys.
There's more hotkeys and things like that. But I'll be honest, I use a pair of CDJs like a pair of turntables.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use all the functionality. Mm-hmm. I really play. They're on vinyl mode. I barely use the Q button. I still rock the platter on the first beat. Yeah. Like I'm still. I don't even
like to be able to see. That was when we were at Northern House.
Yeah.
I got to touch them for a couple of seconds before while Brad was setting up all the cameras. I don't even like being able to see the BPM.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'd like to switch that off.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because you just want to hear it.
I want to hear it. I want to put the headphones on and I want to cue it up like a bit of vinyl and go, oh, fuck, where am I?
Yeah,
okay, there I am.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Well, you can. Just don't look down.
But you can't not. It's right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
like,
a big bright light.
Fucking there.
Bigger screen there, yeah.
One of my, I actually just sold it. I had a Newmark NS7 II controller.
Yeah.
And I was going to buy the Pioneer. I got it from Long & McQuaid. Good shout, Long & McQuaid. Love Long & McQuaid, man. It's a great store. I was going to buy the Pioneer. And the NS7 was there. And it had the actual spinning platters.
Yeah.
Right? It's got the fake little bits of plastic, which the Rain 1 now are doing as well, where it's a little bit of vinyl. And I was like, that's more feels like a turntable than that does. And I got to admit, I picked that. And it had a little bit in the middle where once you were pitched up, it was like Knight Rider. It just met in the middle. Right, just a little red light. I fucking electric taped it straight away. I was like, I don't want to be able to see that at all. Right, and my MacBook, I would always turn to the side as well because I didn't even want to look at Serato.
You Same fucking here. Vinyl junkie. I got one question. Obviously, you've made quite a lot of tracks now. In 1 year, you made 50 to 60 tracks.
Including remixes and remixes of my work. I think the count was somewhere around 50 for last year.
So and that's released, not made.
Yeah, it's released. I have
right?
hundreds of unreleased tracks.
Yeah, I've quite a few. So, what's your most favorite track or most successful track that you've done?
Favorite track, I think it would have to be, I'm a big fan of I'm Free, which was a couple releases ago on Groundwerk, and that's done really well. In terms of beatport, probably the Mastercraft remix of Resistor is the top track because of their name and who they are, and that sells more. Yeah. Thank you for doing that remix, Mastercraft. That was great. Yeah, I don't know. My favorite changes every day. Yeah. You know, sometimes I listen to stuff in the car just to get refamiliarize myself with it and like, do I want to play that this weekend? How did that turn out? What's it sound like in the car? And changes all the time.
Yeah.
What about in your sets? Are you generally playing only your own stuff, or do you like to throw in other people's music?
I play a lot of, I would say I play mostly other people's music. I've done sets that are entirely my own music.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. That's,
Yeah, it's totally a lot of fun, especially when it works. You're like, oh, yeah, this is great.
And every track I'm playing is one of mine, and people are liking this. That must be an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? One of my favorites is that went out on a label called Cuete from Toronto is a track called Surface Change. It tends to get it. I forgot to play it last night. Damn it.
Why is it your favorite?
It's bouncy.
Yep.
It's accessible. It's fun techno.
Mm-hmm.
But it has enough grit and off-kilterness to it to satisfy that side of me artistically.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems to get a good reaction when I play it. And I every time I listen to it, I enjoy it. It doesn't get old to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's been a lot of fun. Last night, one of the highlights, actually, I I played a couple of my tracks, a lot of my tracks actually.
Because we didn't mention this, you played Gorgomish last night.
Yeah.
Anyone watching?
Yeah.
You played last night.
I played 5 to 8 a.m. so really late after hours, which means you can play, all over the place a little bit. I did a remix. There was a remix competition, and I'd just seen them in November when Canada opened up again for a little while with restrictions. Melky Chance came here.
Oh yeah.
And they put up a remix contest for Colorado, and I was like, I just saw them. It was a fun song. I can get the stems and I can crank out a remix in a day. So I'll have a go at it, because it's, they were a lot of fun, and my girlfriend loved them, and I was like, it was a fun song. So I cranked that out, and I actually really loved the remix that I made. I played it for the first time at the Mine when you guys were there, and then wasn't sure I was going to drop it last night, and then did, and then the crowd was like really into it. So it's always fun to have those things that you made and you touched, even if it is a remix of someone else's
music. Twist on it.
It's your remix.
You've done something to it, and it's like,
sometimes they sound better than the original.
Quite often.
Sorry.
Quite often. No, it's true though. Quite often remixes,
I like to take like small parts of the vocal and loop it.
Yeah.
And I also like hard cutoffs on vocals at the end of phrases. So like the phrase should keep going, but it cuts off hard. So I did that in the remix, and it creates some real
nice
snappy moments, I guess.
Yeah.
And it worked. And it's always nice and rewarding when you've done that work and you believe in it, and it's good as a DJ and a producer from your experience, but then it does work. Still a nice surprise every time.
We're going to be closing up just a little bit now, but we ask this question all the time. What advice would you give to future up-and-coming DJs, producers, people who want to get into DJing, producing, or just to even break the scene?
Sure.
And go to Groundwerk.
Well, if you're in Vancouver, come to Groundwerk. We do it every month. You can find us all over socials. Groundwerk Techno on Instagram. groundworkvancouver.com. Groundwerk is WERK, like Kraftwerk, if you're Googling us. Look up the label. Play our music. But no, if you're just starting out, be involved. And if all the doors are shut to you, start your own thing. In fact, I think it's really important to start your own thing.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the root of a lot of how a lot of labels and artists always have started back in the day. Like indie was, it's an independent label.
Yeah.
White labels, a lot of the music back in the day, it was just, okay, I'll go and get some 20 acetates made up and I'll send them out to some DJs and I'll see what happens, and boom, start your own label.
Absolutely. And it's not, the barrier for entry has gotten a lot lower. It's not as difficult to do. So, excuse me.
So start producing music and
be involved in your scene, make friends in your scene. And you can, whoever you are, however you're coming into it, you can be that person within the scene. There's a perception of you have to be partying all the time, or you have to be, on all the drugs, or you have to be this or that or the other thing, and you don't. If you don't want to, you can be. Certainly, you'll be accepted, but you can navigate the scene with where you're from, whoever you are, and find your people within it. There are all multitudes of people within the scene, so find your crew, find people who are like-minded, work with them, do things with them, reach out to them, and go to the places you want to play.
Clubs,
pay cover.
Yeah.
Shake hands, get to know people. You don't have to be insincere about it. And if you're an introvert, you don't have to. I always just say, just get to know one person that night. You don't have to know the whole club. Just get to know one person you didn't before. And that, that'll quickly, exponentially grow.
For sure.
But go out. Be part of what you want to do. It's not enough to practice DJing at home or practice producing or both, and then expect to be booked. You need to, it really is, people want to work with people they know, and so become someone they know. It's not that hard. Yeah.
And most importantly, what are your future plans as well?
Yeah, what you got coming up?
Well, sleep tonight. Last weekend I went to Gorgomish 3 nights in a row, and I played Gorgomish last night. So I'm feeling like maybe tonight is a night for sleep because I'm not booked to play tonight. So I think I'm going to sleep. I'm very much looking forward to that. Next week I play Vantech here in Vancouver, which is a wonderful new crew that's popped up in the last year or so, 2 years, where you can play harder techno. And I'm very much looking forward to that. I've played for them recently, and I'm very excited to be back playing for them, which is probably going to be... That will have happened by the time you're watching this. It was a great show.
It was a great show.
There's potential to go to... there's potential. I'm just waiting to like sign the thing, and so it still could not happen, but there's a potential to go to Montreal at the end of the month.
Yeah.
There was talk about going to Mexico. There was talk about going to Europe, but then some restrictions came back, and now there's some conflict going on there, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Going on over there.
My aim is to go to Europe. Yeah, that's where I would really like to play. Yeah. So I've been building a label and trying to get on labels over there to build up the opportunities to go and play. So now I think I can probably go play in Turkey. The other label I was on wanted to bring me to Czech Republic and to Spain. So doors are starting to open, and I can see that as travel opens up and as things settle down, that those opportunities will start to come, especially as I stay with the output of the label. So those are my plans, is to keep growing the label, start doing shows and nights here in Vancouver again now that restrictions have eased, pandemic restrictions have eased, is to start producing shows again.
Do you have any shows kind of in the planning right now? Or?
Yep. There are some. I'm bidding on some artists already, cool. And I'm setting up some meetings to meet with different venues to see what's available and who wants to do what work and what will work where. So that's all in the planning stage.
It's all happening.
It's all happening. Right. And something worth noting actually with all of this is like I also work a day job. Like,
good for you.
You know, buddy. Outside of this, I also work at Vancouver General Hospital, and I'm also an actor, so I'm juggling that career as well. Wow! So like,
I know the feeling, man.
All of those things take time. And so that planning's going on, but all of it has to be in its own time because we live in a very expensive city. This area in this region is quite expensive, so. That has to be paid for somehow, and during the pandemic there hasn't been a lot of gig opportunity or acting opportunity, so and there's no shame in that. Like a lot of DJs, even known DJs who we all know and love, have day jobs that we don't know about, that we don't see on Instagram, and here I am admitting it. But
I don't think there's
nothing wrong with that at all.
No, man. I do the podcast thing, do my own music, have a kid, family, and a day job.
I'm just amazed you have time to do it all. I'll be honest with you. I feel tired just thinking about it.
I take a lot of naps. I nap a lot.
Yeah.
For me, I think it was just structuring that time a day, for producing, setting just an hour or two just for that, and then cutting off after that.
Brad's been telling me off lately that I've got to prioritise my time. Haven't you?
Yeah.
So for beginning producers, I would say this: sit in the chair every day, and I'm paraphrasing that from The War of Art. Sit in the chair every day.
Do something every day.
Whether it's half an hour a day, whether it's 2 hours a day, do it every day. Do a little bit every day.
Yeah. Brad said that
whether you feel like it or not. Now, if you're having writer's block, take a break. But
not 2 years like I did.
But if you're, if you can, do it every day. And I've been finding it really productive. And the GOAT does this too, because he also has a family and he also works a very responsible day job. He gets up at 5 a.m. and produces from 5 to 6.
Yeah.
That first hit of the day, your A energy before you've used up, made a bunch of decisions and tired out your brain.
Yeah.
He uses that.
I got to admit, mornings for me, not for music producing, because obviously I don't, but when I was doing my electrical school, I'd study in the morning before I'd go to school. Yeah. Because that's when I'm up and brightest. Yeah. And I still do every now and again before I go to work. I'll have an hour jam on the turntables before I go to work, just for fun. If I've woken up early.
Nice.
Put the headphones on and I'll just throw down a few tracks, and then off I go to work. I'm all pumped up.
Nice.
Got some good music in my head.
I got to start doing that. That's good advice.
Yeah, it's a good thing as well. It's a good way to start the day, man. Quick little jam. I used to do it when I was a kid. Yeah. Because again, back when I was trying to learn, sorry, I'm just waffling on here. Trying to learn to mix vinyl. No YouTube back then. Yeah. No one really explaining stuff. I would fucking practice all the time.
Yeah.
Used to drive my mum nuts. She she hated me.
Another thing also is reading books about stuff as well.
Yeah.
What's her name? DJ Rebecca and Anna. I follow them on social media, and they said you can get Patch Tweakers, like the books, and read about modular synthesis and just production and
just studying in general.
Just because it isn't all about, from what they've said and what I spoke to other producers about, it's not just narrowed down to the computer. It could be to the book. It could be to, like you said earlier, practice learning a synth.
Sure.
So reading books, I think, is a good aspect which I need to start doing more of. Reading 15 pages a day is always a good thing.
You alright at reading?
Huh?
You okay with reading?
I'll get by.
You need the big words?
You get by.
Big letters?
I've got an iPhone now, does it for me. I'm not blind. I just want to get this in as well, actually, because I forgot to ask this in your production, because obviously you said you did 50 tracks, obviously we mentioned earlier. How long does it take you to actually start a track from start to finish?
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours?
No fucking way.
So you've got a basic structure of what you would do, or do you already have patches already made?
No,
no?
I 2.5 hours I would say would be the fastest
to the mix down. That's it.
Yeah,
ready to be mastered.
Wow. Like to play out, to be happy to be play out, to try it out. I would say I can do it confidently. I would say I can go to Northern House, rent it for 4 hours, and come out with a track.
Is that because you know the equipment that you have and you know your systems?
Yes.
And that is,
yes.
So,
and I know what I want to do, and I've been DJing for 20 years, so I know when things should happen.
Yeah.
And I know how to make them happen now in Logic because I've spent enough time mucking about with that.
Yeah.
And I can make it happen very quickly.
Wow.
It's not because I have a template. So I'll go into a little bit about how I work.
Yeah.
I find usually just start with a kick drum, what's the sound of the kick, the heartbeat of the track, what type of kick am I going to build this around?
Yeah.
And then usually figure out what kind of bass line I want to use to complement that and get those going. And then I will go and search for, basically, is this a bleepy techno track or a stabby techno track? Yeah. And it's make one of those decisions and then find a sound, or sometimes just go through sounds really quickly and find stuff and start building a groove. Find the one or two main synth elements, hats and 16th hats, offbeat hat, ride, and I'll build it over maybe a bar to 4 bars and build the full sound and do some preliminary mixing while listening to that loop. Yep. And then I just drag that loop over 6 minutes.
I was going to say, so you build your bar and then you just literally go copy, paste.
Yeah, just
because that's what
literally just grab it and drag the whole thing. And then I look at it like a sculptor looking at a block of marble.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a square block and you start chiseling and we start removing things.
That's cool.
So and you're like,
how many tracks do you have when you make one in total?
I find that, so I've also mixed down other artist tracks, which is something I can do for you. I can mix and master your tracks. My masters are play outable. Mm-hmm. So if you need a dummy master and you're not confident, I can do that for you. I can mix down your tracks and they're releasable. I have usually about 13 to 16 separate tracks. Yeah. That's all it takes for me to get the sound and the feel that I want.
That's good, yeah.
I've worked with other artists that have sent me stuff to mix down, and we're working with 40 or 50 tracks.
I've done some I've got 32, and then I've got some that have just got 11.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, how the fuck have I gone from that to that?
Yeah.
They sound almost the same.
But I mean, listen to some of that Richie Houghton stuff from I forget the name of the box set, but and it's just a kick drum. You don't, if the sound is good, you don't need a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's how do you make it sound great? And so I've spent a lot of my learning time on mixing. And I love mixing. I absolutely love mixing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've gotten fairly decent at that. And so making sounds sound more than they are or take up the space in the right way is important to me. And I do that fairly quickly as well. And I have some favorite plugins for that. So that's how I work. And allows me to work very quickly. That subtractive method of taking things away. It's this is a kind of energy that I want to build over 3 minutes, so the breakdown will be there. And I want it to be a short breakdown because I don't want dancers to go for too long. I'm not going to do a long build up on this one, so it's only going to be 16 bars, and I'm just going to take that out. And then I'm going to it allows you to make decisions very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then usually I'll go back on a second session and do a final tweak. Mm-hmm. But like max 7 hours. 6-7 hours.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And then I have a little mastering chain that I like to throw on, and at that point I'm confident playing it out. Like I played out a bunch of my own that I'd mastered last night. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have someone else master it. Ultimately.
Obviously,
yeah.
No, that's cool, man. Any advice for your producers on where to start on a track? Like start with a kick or
start at the beginning?
Yeah. Oh yeah, true. Yeah.
No, I don't know. Some people start with a kick. Some people start with melody. Yeah. So it depends on your style and your take of music, especially. Is like some people want to start with the drop, the build up to the drop, and figure out what that's going to be, and then kind of reverse engineer from there to how to get to that.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what style of music you're making and what the tonality is within it. Yeah, and your arrangement style.
It's one of those things. There's no real rules.
No, there's no real rules.
Find your thing, right?
Yeah. I've watched some videos and people sending questions like, "Where should I start?" Yeah. And you always find people do ask that question, but the answer pretty much always is, "Where do we start?" You know,
you should start.
Like Craig said, it's a blank canvas. It's like art.
Start with what excites you. Mm-hmm. And if melody excites you, start with the melody. You can always add a kick drum later. If the kick drums excite you and that's your thing, and you love the sound of a kick drum, and you love playing with the release and the tails and the attack and layering and whatever else, start there.
I've only played around a little bit. I got a couple of toys, but kick drum and a bass line is where I like to start. I love bass, drums and bass.
Right. Because I can listen to like a good kick drum and a bass and like one synth element going. I can listen to that loop for like an hour.
Yeah, and some of my favorite tracks, some of my favorite old tracks are super simple tracks with hardly anything to it.
Especially, like we said, any Joey Beltram Energy Flash, you know, that's a great track.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so simple and raw. Yeah, love that stuff.
Well, I think we've brushed it up there. And
thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on, man. It's been,
Joel, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and everyone out there. Please follow Joel. Check out Groundwerks. Go and follow him on Instagram and
at Joel West Music on Instagram.
There we go.
Yeah, we'll put all your socials and stuff in the description. Yeah. Make sure you follow us and subscribe and comment and all that stuff as well.
Last plug: I can do mix downs for you, and I also teach production and DJing as well. So if you're around and have access to being in the same region as me, I'm happy to do that for you.
Would you ever do any online stuff?
I'm figuring out how to do that now, so that should be coming, and I would be looking forward to doing that. So if that's something you're interested in, please engage me with that, and I will figure out how to do that as soon as I have someone who wants to do that. I actually have someone from LA who wanted me to. Yeah, I'm figuring that out.
So we're learning, Kev.
Yeah, well, good luck with everything in the future, Joel. I'm sure we're going to see you pretty soon.
Yeah.
We'll see you more often for the show.
Yeah. Like I say, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Keep on dancing.
Keep on dancing.